Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome in session 12 of day 4 of FDP on data management. In this FDP program, faculty development program, we already spent lot of time, lot of sessions on various issues related to data management. In this session, our resource person Dr. Upen sir, Dr. Upen Kumar from IIT Lucknow will give a talk on machine learning algorithm for data management. As we done in all the sessions, our director sir, Professor Surya Prakash Tripathi sir, wants to interact with our resource person and want to say something about this. Professor Tripathi sir.
On behalf of the students of RN Institute of Modern Technology, faculty members, management, and myself, welcome Dr. Upendra Kumar ji on this, that is faculty development program on data management. I'm very happy that once again we are together. I hope for the last 3 years we were together in IIT and done a lot of work. He's a very cool, calm, and dedicated person and do the things with a very special type of dedication and always wants perfection and perfection and perfection. Whatever the work was assigned to him by me or the other senior persons, he always excel in that. I once again welcome him on this platform. I wanted to call him, but due to pandemic, I was not able to call him. I pray to the God that this pandemic vanish from the world quickly so that we can call Professor Upendra Kumar ji physically to deliver a talk in our Institute of Modern Technology. Once again, I welcome you and request Deepti
Yes.
for going ahead. Thank you very much.
Deepti ma'am, over to
Thank
you.
you, sir. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all the participants and session expert. I, Deepti, welcome you all in the third session of day 4, AKDU sponsored FDP. Today's our session expert is Dr. Upendra Kumar sir, who is assistant professor in IIT Lucknow. And sir having more than 10 years of experience. Sir expertise area are human cognition inspired model, artificial intelligence, image processing, biomedical signals processing, soft computing, pattern recognition, robotics, and embedded in C and machine vision. Sir has published 4 books and many book chapters and published many research papers in national and international journals. I'm again welcoming you, sir. Thank you. Now over to you, sir.
Thank you, Deepti ji. Thank you, Professor Tripathi sir. I am very fortunate to have been with you, sir. And thank you, Dr. Bhavesh ji. It's my privilege that I have been called over here to discuss on the machine learning algorithms for data science. So can I start now?
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I would like to share my screen. So is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir, visible. Thank you.
Okay, visible. Okay. Okay, thank you, Bhaveshji.
Yes, sir.
So today our topic is machine learning algorithms for data management. So as we know, due to the current age technology and fast availability of the fast internet, we have a huge amount of data, whether it is in a technical field, whether it is in a medical field, and in each and every field, the internet is giving us the opportunity to get the huge amount of data. So the next point comes to how we can manage this data, this huge amount of data, and how we can analyze this data using some existing current age technology. So the main point is, if we are going to manage this data, huge amount of data manually, if you are going to analyze this huge amount of data manually, so it is very difficult task to get out some useful information. So in that case, machine learning algorithms are there to help you in order to manage this huge amount of data and analyze this data. Now, the next question comes, that is, what is machine learning? So the idea comes that can machine also learn? Yes, machine can also learn like a human being. So the next question comes, how the human learns? The human learn by their examples, by some experiences. So basically, human learn by some examples and experiences. So similarly, a machine can also learn by itself. Okay. If we talk about a kid who does not know what is the alphabet A, alphabet B, so how does he comes to know that how he is able to recognize those alphabets A, B, C, and D? So what happens is that his teacher, her teacher, or his parents make what they do, they teaches him, okay, this is an alphabet A, this is alphabet B, this is alphabet C, and after certain levels, after certain iterations, the kid is able to learn and the kid is able to recognize those alphabets. Now, similarly, if we provide a set of examples to the machine, so and we are also providing some algorithms, learning algorithms, so that machine can also learn like a kid, like a human being. So all these things would be covered in this lecture. So this is our the set of agenda for the today's session. So what is machine learning? Then we will talk about what is machine learning algorithms, then why we need machine learning, then role of machine learning in data management, then we will discuss various types of machine learning algorithms, then supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning. Basically, these types of algorithms we will discuss over here. Now, then other machine learning algorithms, list of machine learning algorithms, and if the time permits, we will see a simple example how we can use a machine learning algorithms in order to recognize the people faces. Okay. Now, what is machine learning? This term was coined by Arthur Samuel in the year 1959. So machine learning is what? So machine learning, machine learns by itself with some set of examples, some set of experiences. The main point is without being explicitly programmed. So you don't need to write down separate program in order to learn the machine. Means machine learning algorithms are those tools which are helping the machine in order to learn like a human being. If you talk about machine learning, so it can be mimic. It can be mimicked by the learning by the kids, means how the kid learns. So this can be also taken an example of machine learning, then student-teacher learning, how this learning is performed. What happens in the classroom teaching? Teacher talks about the topic. Teacher gives some questions and answers, set of questions and answers. And what happens after certain duration, after certain time, the students of the class, they are being able to learn enough. And finally, at the last time, what we do, we take the test. How much efficient the students have learned. So by taking the class test, by taking the in-semester examinations, the students are basically evaluated, and based on those evaluation, we are able to say that suppose 90% students have passed out, we can say that this student-teacher learning model. Similarly, if we talk about self-learning, where there is no any teacher, there is no any supervisor, so what happens? The student learns itself by studying the book. Any book is a study. By studying itself using the internet, documents, PPTs, and other documents. Now, this machine learning can be better understood with some example. Like if I am going to ask you to choose the best apples, you go to the market and you just choose the best apples. So how will you choose the best apples? Based on some features, based on some properties of the fruit, apples. So for that you need to find out some rules. For example, if the apple is bright red and the size is big, means apple is sweet. And if the apple is crispy, then apple is juicy. So this is basically a certain set of examples, certain set of rules which can be used in order to find out the best apples. Now, what you need to do, you need to write down a program. You need to write down a program in order to find out the best apples using these rules. This point is having some issues. For example, the apple may be having a numerous amount of features, numerous amount of the factors which are actually affecting the quality of the fruit. So what happens? You need to have those numerous set of features of the fruit, and also if I say instead of choosing the apple, you need to choose the oranges, you need to choose guava, you need to choose the mango. So in that case, you need to change the rules, whatever the rule you have built for the apples. So basically these are the two challenges. The first challenge is to understand the details of all the factors affecting the quality of the fruit, and the second is difficult to make the accurate rules by hand that covers all possible types of fruits. So basically these two types of challenges are there if you are using the traditional method. So the question comes, what is the alternative? So alternative is use the machine. This is the point where the need of machine learning algorithms come. So in that case, if you are using the machine learning algorithms, so you don't require to write down the separate program in order to match the fruit's properties. And what happens? The machine learning algorithm is able to find out the properties, the features from the data, from the fruits, and the model itself is able to learn. This is the beauty of machine learning. So if you talk about machine learning, so it is an evolution of the regular algorithm. It makes your program smart. So basically, this is what the difference between the traditional algorithms and machine learning algorithms. By allowing them to automatically learn from the data you provide. So basically, these algorithms itself able to learn from the data. They are actually itself able to build the logic based on the given data. So if we talk about the machine learning algorithms, so basically there are two phases, the training phase and the testing phase. So in order to apply machine learning algorithms, you need to follow these two phases. training phase and the testing phase. So in training phase, first you need to train the model based on using the examples, using the experiences. Once the model is sufficiently learned, now it is ready to for the testing. So basically there are two phases. So if there is any, so what happens? So suppose you have provided some examples in order to train the model and using some machine learning algorithm, and that now after certain iteration the model is learned enough, and now you are going to test whether how much efficient your model is. So what you do, you provide some test examples, and using it and test examples, and you will see what is the outcome coming for those test examples. If suppose 90% correct outcome is coming for those testing examples, in that case we can say that the model is 90% efficient. So the beauty of the machine learning algorithm is that we can use the same algorithm to train the different models. Means if you are using machine learning algorithms, the same algorithm can be used to find out the best guava, to find out the best apples, find out the best bananas, and so on. Whatever the fruit you are choosing, the same machine algorithm will work over there. Now, the next topic is the need for machine learning. Why we need machine learning? So we know that we have a huge amount of immeasurable amount of data, and we need to manage those data, and we need to analyze those data. So a survey says that we generate around 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every single day. So how we can manage this huge amount of data? How we can analyze this huge amount of data? So we need to build the predictive models that can study and analyze complex data to find out useful information, useful insights, and deliver more accurate results. So basically, for this objective, we need machine learning. For example, Netflix and Amazon, these are the two companies. They are basically highly involved in application of machine learning models. They are highly using these machine learning models for what? For in order to identify the profitable opportunities. So in order to increase their profits, whatever the product they are building, whatever the system they are having, they want to increase their profitable opportunities, and also to avoid the unwanted risks. So basically, machine learning algorithms are there to help in these conditions. Now, the importance of the machine learning algorithm can be better understood by some examples of Netflix recommendation engine. So what it does? So Netflix basically in this recommendation engine is recommending you the favorite movie which you need to watch. Over 75% what you watch is recommended by Netflix, and these recommendations are made by implementing machine learning algorithms. So whatever the recommendation system they have built by the Netflix, basically they have used the machine learning algorithms, and they are recommending you the favorite movie which you want to watch. The another is the Facebook's auto tagging feature. You know that if you are posting a photograph which is having the photograph of more than one person, and what happens? The Facebook has a model which is based on machine learning, machine learning based model which is able to recognize the facial image of your friend which is in your friend list. This is what the machine learning algorithm has you out. Now, Amazon, there is a company Amazon, software is Alexa. So this software is based on basically natural language processing and machine learning algorithms. What it does, it plays the songs based on your request. So based on your playlist. It can also be used to book your the Uber cab and in order to and also the connection with your IoT devices in your home and also the protect of your health. So basically, these types of tasks are being handled by the machine learning based models that have been developed by the algorithms. Similarly, if you talk about the spam or non-spam emails, so this is the beauty of machine learning algorithms, which basically which is being used, which has been used by the Googles in order to filter out which email is for your use and and which email is not for your use. In unwanted emails, it just separate out the unwanted emails from your set of emails. So this is the very these are very few examples. There are so many applications there you can use machine learning algorithms in order to build the models. Now, uh, if we talk about the types of machine learning algorithms, so it can be classified into three classes: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So in supervised learning, we need a supervisor. In unsupervised learning, we don't require any supervisor, we don't require any trainer. And reinforcement learning is a learning which is performed itself based on reward and penalty based system. If we talk about the supervised learning, so regression comes, linear regression, polynomial regression, then decision tree, then random forest, and some other classification techniques like scale, nearest neighbor, trees, and logistic regression, name-based classifier, support vector machine. So all these machine learning algorithms come under supervised learning. So these algorithms would be discussed later on later slides. Now next is unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning, the clustering comes, SVD, similar value decomposition, principal component analysis, then k-means clustering, then association analysis, then repeated Markov model. All these terms come under unsupervised learning. And so basically, this supervised and supervised learning works on two different kinds of data: the continuous data and the categorical kind of data. Continuous data, when we talk about the numerical data, and categorical kind of data, when we talk about to class-wise information, whether yes or no kind of information. Now, what is supervised learning? So, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay.
Screen is visible.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what is supervised learning? So, supervised learning, it requires some supervisor. So, it's a learning which is performed by a supervisor. For example, student-teacher learning. What happens? The teacher acts as a trainer. Teacher acts as a supervisor in order to make learn to the students. So, in supervised learning, if we talk about the learning of the model, so it is basically having two different phases: the training phase and the testing phase. So training is performed by the trainer. Training is performed by the supervisor. So what happens in this algorithms? It predicts the results on the basis of training data and continuously iterated by the teacher. So basically, it does not perform in a single step. So it goes basically multiple steps. Multiple means repetitive steps. So a set of examples provided to the model, and models learn by using those examples, and after certain iteration, once the model is learned, now it is ready predicts the correct output. So this is what the supervised learning. If you talk about the input attributes, so suppose if you are going to build a biometric attendance system, so this is an example of supervised learning. What happens in biometric attendance? So suppose if there are
100 employees in your organization. So the biometric, it can have your fingerprint, it can have your face, it can have your palm, it can have any biological attribute. So in biometric attendance, what you do, you will take the biometric, whether it is a face, whether it is a fingerprint, of all those 100 employees. Now, what happens in general, 70% data is being used for the training. So out of those 100 employees, from those 100 employees, you are taking numerous, you are taking multiple data of the each employee, and out of those multiple data, you are using 70% data for the training purpose, and remaining 30% data is used for the testing purpose. So, what happens?
Once the model is trained,
Your biometric system is implemented. Now it is ready to recognize those unknown biometric images. Now similarly, we can also say that the pre-screening diagnostic tool for a particular disease. For example, if we talk about heart attack kind of disease, so you can build a pre-screening tool using the ECG data of the patient. Similarly, for the weather forecasting system, where the weather parameters are being used in order to train the model. Weather parameters like temperature, the humidity, and so many parameters. And what happens? Whatever the data we have, so what we do, around 70% data is being used for the training, and remaining 30%, it can be changed. It is not a fixed rule, so you can change. You can take 80-20 ratio also, you can take 60-40 ratio also.
just say here in supervised
Learning, what we should have a data, such data, we should be labeled. Labeled means we should already know. In order to train the model, we should already know what kind of data we have. Suppose in this example, we have two different kinds of images. First image is for the Tom, and the second kind of image is for the Jerry. So we already know the label of this supervised learning. Input is being fed to this model, and this model is basically learned using these examples. After certain duration, after certain iteration, now it is able to classify. Whatever the input image is given to this model. It classifies into two classes, whether it is class for the Jerry and whether it is class for the Tom. So if we talk about the labeled dataset, basically labeled dataset acts as a trainer, a training dataset which is being used to learn the model.
now unsupervised
Learning. In this kind of learning, we don't require any supervisor. So what happens? Whatever means we do not have labeled dataset. We just say a set of data is provided to the model, and this model itself able to find out the pattern or the features from the data.
so data is
Not labeled. So what happens? Based on some features, so the model itself is able to learn it.
now once it is
It is learned. Now what happens? It is ready to classify any unknown data set. So basically, just see here in this diagram, in this example figure, we have two different kinds of images, but these images are not labeled over here.
so what happens?
This unsupervised learning model, this unsupervised learning method is able to find out the features from the data, and using those features, it is able to classify those data.
So unsupervised learning
Involves training by using unlabeled data and allowing the model to act on the information without the guidance. So we don't require any guidance over here. We don't require any teacher over here. just say here, based on its intrinsic features, this model is able to group this data set into two data groups. First one, just see here, the two data groups of this data is being clustered. So in case of unsupervised learning, the clustering comes basically. Now this is reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is basically thought of like a hue and trial display. What happens? So we don't have any data set and we don't have any trainer available. So what happens in case of reinforcement learning? So based on its whatever the knowledge it is environment, whatever the knowledge it is from the environment, based on this knowledge, it is able to perform some action. Basically, it is an agent environment action based concept. It is based on the concept of agent and environment based. So basically, there are two important terms: exploration and exploitation. In exploration, what happens? The agent is able to learn from the environment. It explores something. And exploitation means once the agent has gained the knowledge from the environment, it is able to perform some based on the knowledge whatever he has gained from the environment. So basically, these are two terms: exploration and exploitation. So this reinforcement learning can be better understood by some example. For example, if you have been dropped out in an isolated island where you don't know anything, you don't know what kind of water over there, you don't know what kind of food over there, you don't know what kind of danger over there. So you don't know anything over there, you have been dropped out in an isolated island. So in that case, you will use reinforcement learning. So initially you will be in panic situation, but after a certain time, once the time passes by, you will how to live on that island. So you will explore yourself about the environment, you will understand the climate condition, you will search out the type of food that grows over there, and even dangers us. So this is exactly how the reinforcement learning works. Now, if we talk about the list of machine learning algorithms, so we will discuss here the linear regression, logistic regression, deterministic bias. So all these algorithms will be discussed here in later slides. Now, linear regression basically is a classification, it is a regression method basically, which is based on continuous variables, continuous data. For example, if you want to find out the cost of the houses, you want to find out that how many total sales are there. So in that case, you want to estimate, basically linear regression is being used to estimate the values of dependent variables based on the independent variables. Means basically linear regression is established relationship between the independent and the dependent variables. So for example, if you talk about linear regression, so linear regression y is equal to ax plus b, where x is what? X is the independent variable and y is the dependent variable. So if you want to find out the relationship between dependent variable and independent variable, in that case you will use the linear regression. This can be better understood with an example. Just ask a child of the fifth grade, the fifth class student, you are asking that you need to arrange the people in increasing order of weight without asking them their weight. So this task has been given to that child, and that he needs to arrange the people in increasing order of their weights. And we don't provide we will not provide data about the weights of those people. So what will happen? So the child will is actually use the linear regression. So what will happen? So he will figure out the height and basically he will find out the height of the people and he will think that okay, the person who is having the larger height will be having larger weight. The person is having lower height will be having lower. So basically, it will try to find out the relationship between the height and the weight. So this is where the linear regression comes. So he will try a plot for between two axes, the height and the weight, and just see, he will find out a linear line. Basically, this linear line is nothing but a linear regression, which is basically estimating the weight of any person based on his height. So these coefficients A and B, basically how we will find out the coefficients A and B. So this line will be drawn. This line will be drawn by using the concept of minimizing the sum of the squared differences of the distance between the data points and the regression line. So what happened? We will draw a line in such a way that the distance of each data point with this line and the distance, and then what we do? We will do square differences. Differences. And then we will find out the sum. So this sum should be minimized in order to find out the value of the coefficients A and B.
So this is what the linear regression.
So now, next is the logistic regression. Linear regression is works on the continuous data. So basically, it is being used to estimate the independent variable based on the dependent variable. While in case of logistic regression, so basically it is not a regression algorithm but a classification algorithm. So it is used to estimate the discrete values. So they are getting some numerical value, while in case of logistic regression, we just find out
The categorical kind of
value. Means we are getting the answers in the form of 0 and 1. We are getting the answers in the form of yes or no, true or false. So this is the logistic regression. So in simple words, the logistic regression predicts the probability of occurrence of an event by fitting the data to the logit function. That is why it is also known as logit regression. So means we are getting the output in the form of 0 or 1. So if the probability is more than 0.5, so we can take it as 1. If the probability is coming less than 0.5, so we can take it as a 0.
This is what the
logit regression.
now next is
Decision tree. So decision tree is also a classification method. So basically, it will work both for the categorical as well as the continuous dependent values. So it can work for the numerical values and also it can also work for the categorical yes or no kind of problems.
so decision tree
Tree just basically it is a decision tree looks like an inverted tree. So where each node represents a predictor variable, that is the feature, and the link between the nodes represents a decision, and each leaf node represents an output. So basically it is just in the form of a tree, inverted tree, where we start from the root and we will have some branches. So basically a tree, there are a set of nodes. Each node will we will treat it as here a predictor variable. And whatever the link is given between the two different by the nodes, it will be used for the decision.
for example
If you want to find out, if you want to use this decision tree as a classifier in order to find out in your party, so how many of your guests were not vegetarian? So in this example, we can use recently. So
For example, let's say
there are three different kind of
non-vegetarian food
food
was
was
there
there
in
in
your
your
party.
party.
So,
So
so what
what
will
will
happen?
happen?
The
The
each
each
node
node
here
here
in
in
case
case
of
of
in
in
dysentery,
dysentery,
each
each
node
node
will
will
be
be
treated
treated
as
as
a
a
predator
predator
viable.
viable.
So each
Each
non
non
each
each
non-vegetarian
non-vegetarian
food
food
would be taken
taken
as
as
a
a
predator viable
variable
over
over
here.
here.
For
For
example,
example,
if
if
the
the
guest
guest
did
did
the
the
guest
guest
eat
eat
chicken?
chicken,
Did
did
the
the
guest
guest
eat
eat
chicken?
chicken?
If
If
yes,
yes,
then
then
he is
he's
a
a
non-vegetarian.
non-vegetarian.
If
If
no,
no,
then
then we will go
for
for
the
the
next
next
non-vegetarian
non-vegetarian
food.
food.
That is
That is
mutton.
mutton.
Did
Did
the
the
guest
guest
eat
eat
mutton?
mutton?
If
If
yes,
yes,
then
then
he
he
is
is
non-vegetarian.
non-vegetarian.
Otherwise,
Otherwise,
we
we
will
will
go
go
for
for
the
the
another
another
non-vegetarian
non-vegetarian
item.
item.
That
That
is
is
seafood.
seafood.
Did the
Did the
guest
guest
eat
eat
seafood?
seafood?
Yes,
Yes,
he
he
is
is
a
a
non-vegetarian.
non-vegetarian.
Otherwise,
He is a
he
he
is
is
a
a
vegetarian.
vegetarian.
So
So
just
just
see
see
here,
here,
each
each
node
node
is
is
acting
acting
as
as
a
a
predator
predator
viable
viable
in
in
case
case
of
of
dysentery.
dysentery over here.
And just see,
Leaf
leaf
node.
node.
If
If
you
you talk
talk
about
about
this
this
dysentery,
dysentery,
the
the
leaf
leaf
node
node
is
is
giving
giving
you
you
the
the
outcomes,
outcomes,
whether
whether
the
the
guest
guest
is
is
non-vegetarian
non-vegetarian
or
or
the
the
vegetarian.
vegetarian.
So this is how the
The
dysentery
dysentery
can
can
be
be
used
used
for
for
the
the
classification
classification
purpose.
purpose.
Now, next
Next
is
is
name-based
name-based
classifier.
classifier.
Name-based classifier, this
This
machine
machine
learning
learning
algorithm
algorithm
is
is
based
based
on
on
some
probability-based
probability-based concept.
concept.
So
So
that
assumes
assumes that
that
the
the
presence
presence
of
of
particular
particular
feature
feature
in
in
a
a
class
class
is
is
unrelated
unrelated
to
to
the
the
presence
presence
of
of
any
any
other
other
feature.
feature.
So
So
the
the
lab-based
lab-based
classifier,
classifier,
basically it has an assumption that whatever
whatever
the
the
attribute we
attribute
are
we are
using
using
for a
for a
particular
particular
data,
data,
for a particular data, those
those
attributes
attributes
are
are
independent to
independent to
each
each
other.
other.
For example, if
If
you
you
talk
talk
about,
about,
so
so
if it
it
is
is
red,
red,
brown,
brown,
and
and
mostly
mostly
inches
inches
diameter,
diameter,
these are the features of an apple. So
so
in
in
lab-based
lab-based
classifier,
classifier,
basically
basically
whatever
whatever
the
the
attributes
attributes
we
we
are
are
taking
taking
uh, in
in
order
order
to
to
find
find
out
out
the
the
outcomes,
outcomes,
we
we
consider
consider
that
that
these
these
features
features
are
are
independent
independent
to
to
each
each
other.
other.
So
So
basically,
basically,
NAPS
NAPS
classifier
classifier
works
works
on
on
probability-based
probability-based
concept.
concept.
So uh,
So
this is the formula
Formula
which
which
is
is
being
being
used
used
for
for
the
the
NAPS
lab-based
classifier.
classifier.
PC
PC
by
by
S,
S,
that
that
is
is
the
the
posterior
posterior
probability,
probability.
and then
Then
PC
PC
by
by
S
S
equal
equal
to
to
Px
Px
by
by
C
C
in
in
PC
PC
by
by
divided
divided
by
by
P
P
of
of
S.
S.
So
So
PC
PC
by
by
S
S
is
is
the
the
posterior
posterior
probability.
probability.
That
That
is
is
the
the
probability
probability
of
of
the
the
class.
class.
That
That
is
is
the
the
target
target
variable
variable.
given
Given
the
the
predator
predator
variable.
variable.
Then
Then
Px
Px
by
by
C
C
is
is
what?
what?
Is
Is
the
the
likelihood
likelihood
probability,
probability,
which
which
is
is
the
the
probability
probability
of
of
predator
predator
variable
variable
for
for
a
a
given
given
class.
class.
PC is the prior
Prior
probability
probability
of
of
the
the
class,
class.
and
And
Px is
is
the
the
prior
prior
probability
probability
of
of
the
the
predator.
predator.
Just
Just
see
see
here,
here,
each
each
node.
node,
So basically,
basically,
C
C
is
is
the
the
class,
class,
the
the
target
target
class,
class,
and
and
X
X
is
is
the
the
predator,
predator,
the
the
attribute
attribute
which
which
are
are
being
being
used
used
to
to
predict
predict
the
the
behavior
behavior
of
of
the
the
model.
model.
Now, this snap-based classifier
Classifier
can
can
be
be
better
better
understood
understood
with
with
some
some
example.
example.
So
So
we
we
have
have
a
a
data
data
set
set
available.
available.
Some weather
Weather
conditions
conditions
are
are
given,
given.
and
Please
please tell us
whether
whether
the
the match
match
was
was
played
played
or
or
not
not
in the
in the
form
form
of
of
yes
yes
or
or
no.
no
It
it
has
has
given.
given.
Now,
Now,
just
just
see
see
here,
here,
there
there
are
are
how
how
many
many
cases?
cases?
There
There
are
are
14
14
cases
cases
given.
given.
So
So
now
now
we need
need
to
to
use
use
NAP-based
NAP-based
classifier
classifier
in
in
order
order
to
to
predict
predict
whether
whether
the
the
match
match
will be
will be
played
played
when the
when the
weather
weather
is
is
sunny
sunny
or
or
not.
not.
The
The
players
players
will
will
play
play
if
if
the
the
weather
weather
is
is
sunny.
sunny.
Is
Is
this
this
estimate is
estimate is
correct
correct
or
or
not?
not?
So
So
basically,
basically,
we
we
need
need
to
to
find
find
out.
out.
We need to
We need to
predict
predict
this
this
one
one
using
using
the
the
data
data
set
set
which
which
is
is available over here.
No.
If you talk about the frequency table, so if the weather condition is overcast, in that case, 4 times match was placed. If the weather condition is rainy, So 3 times no and 2 times yes, 2 times match was played. Similarly for sunny and dark, because this is what the frequency table. Now likelihood table, we will see for the overcast weather, what is the likelihood probability of whether the match was played or not. That is the, since there are 14 cases and 4 times the match was played, so it is what? It is a 4 by 14. Similarly for the rainy season, 3 times it was not played and 2 times the match was played. So how many cases? 5 cases. So out of 14, there are 5 cases. Sorry, yeah, give me a lecture, sir. Just wait. Similarly, for the likelihood probability, rainy season, sunny season also. So now, using the map-based classification, we need to predict whether the match will be played when the weather is sunny. So, what is the formula? So, formula is that PC by X. So, the C class and X is what? X is the predictor. So, X is the predictor means sunny. Sunny season, we need to find out whether how much probability it is coming for the match will be played for the sunny condition or the sunny weather. So using this formula, P sunny by S into Px divided by P sunny. P sunny by S. The match was played and during that the weather was sunny. The weather was sunny, the match was played. This is 3. So how much it will come? It will be 3. So how many cases are there? There are total, yes, the match was played. There were total, how many times match was played? 9 times. And for the sunny season, it was played 3 times. So probability would be for what? 3 by 9, that is 0.33. Similarly, P sunny. For sunny weather, how many times the match was played? How many times the match was happened, whether it was played or not played. So 3 plus 2, how much? 5 by 14, that is 0.36. Similarly, probability of the match was played. So how many times the match was played for all the weather conditions? So this is coming what? 9. So 9 by 14, that is 0.64. So we will put all these values in this formula. So we will get how much? We are getting 0.60 probability whether this match was played during the sunny weather. So this probability is coming more than 0.5. So we can say that there are higher chances of that the match will be played for sunny weather. Now next is K nearest neighbor classification. Nearest neighbor means we are just finding out the neighbors. Based on the neighbors, we are finding out the similarity and dissimilarity of the data set. So how we can find out the similarity and dissimilarity? For example, we can take the Euclidean distance. We can take the Manhattan distance between the two data sets. So we want to find out the similarity between two data points, two data sets. So in that case, we need to find out the distance between these two data points. So if we talk about the nearest neighbor classifier, suppose there are 10 classes and one we need to find out this data belongs to which class. So in that case, we use nearest neighbor classifier. What will we do? We will calculate the distance of this unknown data point with those same classes. And then out of those, we will get 10 different distances. So out of those 10 distances, for which data, for each class we will be having very least distance, that we will say that okay, this unknown data will belongs to that particular class. This is what the nearest neighbor classifier. But if we talk about k nearest neighbor classifier, so we can take better example here. So for example, if there are 10 classes and each class is having 10 different data sets. 10 different data sets. So now what will happen? We will calculate the distance of unknown data point with all those 10 classes. So for each class we will be having 10 different distances. So how many distances are there? For each class 10, since each class is having 10 different data. So if we find out the distance between the unknown data point with the data points present in each class, so we will having 10 distances. 10 distances for each class, and there are since 10 classes, so 10 cross 10, 100 distances will be there. So out of those 100 distances, we will pick out the k smallest distances. So out of those k smallest distances, using the majority of the voting, so the distance, the major portion of the distances will be covered by which class, that class will be the final class of that. Okay? So just see here, we have a no data set. So we have the image of this cat. So now we need to find out we need to find out its class. We need to find out its class using the nearest neighbor classifier. So just see here, if we talk about the cat, so the cat will be having pointy ears. If we talk about the dogs, so the dogs will be having the long ears. So based on this feature, means what we are doing here, we are just finding out the distance. Means we are just finding out the similarity between the unknown data set and the given data set. And for this data set, which is we are getting the better similarity. We are getting the better similarity. That is declared as the class of that unknown data. Hello, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir. You are audible and screen is clear. Sir.
Okay. Now support vector machine. Support vector machine is a supervised machine learning algorithm which is mainly used to classify two different class data or more than two classes. So how it works basically? Support vector machine can be better understood with an example. Suppose we have a farm and we have two different types of animals. First animal is rabbit and other kind of animal is wolf. And we know that the wolves are very dangerous, they can attack on the rabbits. So our objective is we need to protect rabbits from the wolves. So how we can protect our rabbits from the wolves? So in that case, we need to build a fence. We need to draw a boundary in between these two set of animals. So similarly, so once we set up a fence, once we set up a boundary between these two set of animals, so then only we can save our rabbits from the wolves. So this is how the support vector machine also works. So we have two different types of data set. We need to find out a decision boundary. We need to find out a classification boundary in order to classify these two data sets. So if we draw a line, if we draw a hyperplane along with decision boundary, so this would be a support vector machine. Just see here. So now just see in support vector machine, what are the support vectors? We have two different data sets over here. If we draw a line, along with the outermost element of this data set, this class of data set, we have two different class of data set. This is the first class and this is the second class data set. If we draw a line along with the outermost element of this class data. Similarly, another line along with the outermost element of this class data. So these two vectors are known as support vectors. Now we need to draw a decision boundary over here so that we can classify these two class data. Now, how this decision boundary, that is also known as hyperplane, is drawn. So the hyperplane is drawn in such a way so that the distance between the hyperplane and the support vectors should be maximum. Just see here, this is what the margin. This is the support vector for the first class, and this is the support, this dotted line. This dotted line is the support vector for the second class, and we need to maximize the distance between these two support vectors. uh, um, so this margin should be maximized. So in order to classify these two class of data. Now, there are different ways to draw this hyperplane. Either we can draw this way, or we can draw this hyperplane this way. Now, the question comes, which approach is better? So, in the approach where we get the larger margin, just see here in the second approach, here we are getting the larger margin in between these two support vectors. So, this is better approach in order to draw the hyperplane, in order to draw the decision boundary in support vector machine. Now, suppose if we have this kind of data distribution, we have this kind of data distribution. Just see here in this figure, we are not able to separate this data set using the hyperplane one. So this is the point where the non-linear support vector machine, the idea of non-linear support vector machine comes. So what we do in support vector machine, we have a huge amount of data set, and this support vector machine algorithm is classify this data into two different classes over here. In this example, it is classifying the data set using support vector machine into two classes. The first class is the person suffering from the heart disease, and the other is the person that does not suffering from the heart disease. So this is what the support vector machine. Now, the random forest. Random forest is also a supervised classification and regression algorithms. So why we call it as a random forest? So in previous slide we have discussed about the decision trees. So for random forest is nothing but a collection of decision trees. Then the next question comes, why we need the random forest? So basically what we are doing here, we are constructing here a set of decision trees in case of random forest over here. So instead of constructing a single decision tree, we are constructing a set of decision trees. How we are constructing decision trees? So using the predictor variables. So what are the predictor variables over here? For example, if you are going to buy a house, so what are the parameters you will consider in order to buy a house? So these are the parameters. The price of the house, you will consider what the price of the house is. Then you would consider the locality. Then you consider the number of beds, bedrooms, the parking space availability facilities. So many parameters that will be used in order to construct a decision tree, which will be help you in taking a decision to buy a house. Just see here, if we are using all these predictor variables in a single decision tree, so in that case, we are able to decide whether we should go further to buy a house or not. Similarly, just see here in this diagram, if the price of the house is greater than 10,000, means it is not your under budget. so you won't buy that house. So if it is your under budget, so you would go for the another parameters locally. Again, you would go for the another parameters. So basically, all these predator variables are used in a single decision tree.
But what happens?
If we randomly select a set of attributes from the
Whatever the attributes
given to us, we are randomly selecting a subset of attributes. Instead of taking all those attributes, all those parameters, we take subset of those parameters and we build a set of decision trees. Instead of constructing a single tree, we are constructing a set of decision trees. That is what the random forest. So how we take the decision in case of random forest? Suppose they have taken three attributes in first decision tree, another three attributes in second decision tree, and another three attributes in the other decision tree. So we basically have taken here three different decision trees.
So
How you take the decision? So whatever the outcomes coming from the first decision tree and the second decision tree and third decision tree. So whatever the outcome is coming, the majority of the outcome is considered as the final outcome of the random forest.
so
Basically, this random forest would overcome the problem of decision trees because in decision tree the overfitting occurs means due to the biasness the decision is not in case of decision tree whatever decision we are getting that is not perfect.
but in case of random forest,
Since we are selecting randomly the attributes of the parameters, so in that case, it is overcome the problem of overfitting.
now next is
Artificial neural network.
now new artificial neural
Neural
network.
network basically it is based on the human brain, human neural network. So human neural network is having millions of neurons interconnected to each other. We know that the human brain is having millions of neurons. So neurons are what? Neurons are the processing element which process on the data. For example, how it works. For example, if suppose some fire occurs and in front of us some fire occurs, so what will happen? We have some sensory organs like eyes, nose, mouth. So using these sensory organs, the input from the environment is being fed to the human brain model.
Now, whatever the input is
Being fed to the human brain model, that input is being processed through the human brain neurons.
now
Just
suppose
I have put my hand on a hot pot.
so
What will happen? Some action potential will be generated over there, and some signal will be being fed through the veins to the human brain. Now, what happens in human brains? Some processing will be performed in the neurons, and after processing, whatever the outcome will be coming, if that outcome is beyond the threshold value, so in that case, your human brain gives the order to perform some action. So in that case, what happens? The human brain will give an order to perform some action. So in that case, we will just keep out our hand from that hot pot.
so this is how
The neural network works. So similarly, can we design a machine-based neural network also, artificial neural network also? Yes, we can.
task is the applying some function, activation function. So what that summation? So what the summation does over here? Summation does basically we are inputting we are multiplying the input with the weights of these edges. So x1 is multiplied by w1, x2 is multiplied by w2. Similarly, x3 is multiplied by w3, and finally the xn is multiplied by wi. Now we are getting summation over here xi wi, and then we are adding some biasness also, and then finally this whole value is being passed to the activation function. Activation function, what it does, it basically creates some non-linearity. Means whatever the output is coming, it basically normalize the input in the range 0 to 1. It basically, this normalization is actually normalization is based on the transfer function which we are using in case of artificial neural networks. So if you are using tan-seq function, the range of output coming from range of output values comes from -1 to +1, in between -1 to +1, if you are using between 0 and 1. Now, next is self-organization method. Self-organization method, if you have a amount of so basically what we do here, just see in this diagram. So in this diagram, the input is having dimension of the n-dimensional data, x1, x2, x3, xn, n-dimensional data. If the value of n is large, means we have a large amount of data set. So self-organization map, what it does, it transform the high dimension data into low dimension data, maybe 2D dimension data, in the form of a map, color map. Just see here, the self-organization map reduces the data dimension and basically displays the similarity among the data. Now, in self-organization map, just see here, in case of artificial neural network, so we should have some label data set. We should have the input data as well as the output data. So in case of artificial neural network, we must be having the label data set. Label data set, and that label data set should be having the input data along with the output data. Suppose there are 100 data set available in case of artificial neural network. So in this artificial neural network will be having two different phases: the training phase and the testing phase. And the training phase, since we have a label data set, means we have input data set available and output data set available. So the 70% data is being used for the training, and the remaining 30% can be used for the testing. So while in case of self-organization map, we don't require any label data set. We don't require any target vector. So how it learns? So it learns by competitive learning. Competitive learning means the output nodes the competition and in such a way that they are trying to basically they are trying to find out the outcome, so that the difference between the target output and the actual output shows. Just see here, in case of artificial neural networks, it also learned by error correction method. Suppose we have a label data set, and The input data is available and corresponding output data is available. So we are feeding the input data to the model, and correspondingly we are getting the output. Now, whatever the output we are getting, that is the actual output. And whatever the output is given in the label data set, that is the target output. So now, whatever the output is coming and what is the target output, we will find out the difference between these two output. And now these weights, these weights, we just find out. Just see here, this activation function, we are passing this input and we are getting some output. So whatever the output we are getting over here, this output will be compared with the target output. And again, what will happen? Again, we will change the value of W, the change of the weights, whatever the assigned weights over here, these weights will be changed accordingly, so that in such a way, so that the error means whatever the actual output is coming and whatever the target output is there, the difference should be made. So this is how artificial neural networks works. So in case of self-organization map, self-organization maps also differ from the artificial neural networks because it uses the competitive learning. For example, we have a large data set available. In this data set, there are this is basically a word bank data set containing all the 39 indicators. Basically, there 39 columns are given. These 39 columns are nothing but the indicators. Indicators of what? 39 indicators of human development. Process now. We have around 200 data set available, more than 200 countries. Just see here, we have a data set. We have a data set which is having more than 200 rows, and each row is having around 19 indicators. Each row is having around 19 columns. So these columns are nothing but the human development indicators. So basically, we need to classify this data set based on some indicators of the human development. So this is basically a huge amount of data. So in this data set, we will use the self-organization map. Self-organization map, what it will do, it will classify the data set into different classes. You see here, here we have different set of classes, and they are basically colored with some colors. The color differences are showing that these regions are different to each other using these indicators of the human development. So basically what we are doing here, we are converting a high dimensional data into low dimensional data over here. The high dimensional data, we have around 19 dimensional data here. We are converting it into 2 dimensional data in the form of a graph. Now, next is K-means clustering. So clustering is what? Clustering is unsupervised learning. So we do not have any supervisor. So in case of clustering, so the algorithm itself able to classify the data into their own clusters. So basically, the algorithm itself group the data points into its own clusters. If we talk about the K-means clustering, so K-means clustering basically is dividing the data points into homogeneous classes or the clusters based on what? Based on points in the same group are as similar as possible. Points in different group are as dissimilar as possible. So basically, we have a set of data points. Just see here in this diagram, we have different set of points over here, or we need to find out different groups. We need to find out different clusters using k-means clustering. So how the k-means clustering will work? So basically here we will be finding out the k-means. Means centers. We will find out the k centers over here. So in this example, we have taken the value of k, that is 2. We are here finding out the 2 centers. So initially we'll find out, we will randomly select the 2 centers, and using those centers, so we will find out the distance. How we find out the distance of each data point with those centers? And the data point which is having least distance to the center, that will be actually considered, in that particular cluster. See here, this data point is very close to this red center, so this has been put into this cluster. So basically, each data point will be put in their own clusters, by just finding out the distance of each data point with those data centers. Now, suppose first iteration has been completed now, and the data points are clustered to 2 different clusters. Now again, we will find out the new centers. How we find out the new centers? By just suppose the first cluster is having point x1, x2, x3, x4, x. Second cluster is having points y1, y2, y3, yn. Now again, we will find out the centers. Again, find out the centers of these clusters. How? We find out. We will apply the formula, the average formula x1 plus x2 plus x3. This is what the singlet cluster data. If it is an n cluster data, then x1 plus x2 plus 3 plus xn divided by n, y1 plus y2 plus y3 plus yn divided by n. So then we can find out the center of these clusters. So again, we will find out this. Once we have found out the centers of these clusters, so again we will find out the distance of each data point with these new centers, and again we will get another cluster. So this process will be repeated until the shape of these clusters would not change. So, for example, this k-means clustering can be used in setting up the Pizza Hut center. So, Pizza Hut delivery center across Italy. So, what the full challenges will do? So, first, they need to analyze the areas from where the pizza is being ordered frequently. So, they need to find out the centers. In that case, they need to analyze the areas from where the pizza is being ordered frequently. And the second is, they need to understand as to how many pizza stores has to be open to cover the delivery in the area. And the third is, they need to figure out the locations for the pizza stores within all these areas in order to keep the distance between the store and the delivery points minimum. So, for this case, we will be using the k-means clustering. So, these are all about the classification and clustering algorithm, machine learning algorithms. There are other algorithms available also. So, I will stop my discussion over here. Now, if we talk about the conclusion, so conclusion is what? So, the exponential growth of artificial intelligence, machine learning is becoming one of the most sought after the fields. So, machine learning algorithms has revolutionized the field. Each and every field, whether it is mechanical engineering, whether it is the electrical engineering. So, it does not mean that the machine learning algorithms will be used in computer science. No. Now it has been widely used
in different disciplines. So the evolution of machine learning algorithms has changed the entire 21st century. It is starting to redefine the way we live, and it's time we understood what it is and why it matters. So with the demand for the more complex calculations, we cannot rely on the simplistic algorithms. Instead, we must utilize algorithms with higher computational capabilities. So that is called the advanced machine learning algorithms. So this is all about, these are the references you can use. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Upal sir. Thank you for your talk. Thank you. We all are benefited by your talk, sir. And surely it will improve our domain knowledge. And lot of discussion today held on this data management issue related to machine learning, how we manage our data with the help of this machine learning approaches, and lot of in-depth we got from this talk. Thank you again for your nice session. All participants
Thank you.
requested, if you have any question, if you have any query, you can directly interact with our resource person. Directors are also active. Sir, if you want to say something. Professor Tripathi sir.
Thank you very much. Let's explain the margin for the very in-depth talk on this topic, and you explained it very nicely. And I hope the participants are also delighted with your talk, and they may choose to do the innovative research in this field. We may contact you personally, but you are very close to our field, as you are in the heart of that most of it, not exactly, but it is not in the outskirts, it is in the main city. So other participants who are from nearby areas, you can also come and personally contact him and get the help for doing the UAD research in this field. All it will happen, and this technology is going to finish soon. Again, by for physical presentation of this talk on this topic, some new topic. It is something and say thanks, and thank you very much. Dr. Pawan Kumar
Thank you,
Gari
sir.
ji ने Kumar like to have his opinion also. Dr. Pawan Kumar Gari ji.
Namaskar, Namaskar. I joined late, so I couldn't hear, but I've seen that the lecture of Dr. Kumar is going on, so I couldn't stop myself and I joined here. So I am pretty sure that the FDP is going in well mode, and you have already connected and called two speakers, including from JNU and IIT, Tripura IIT. So I am hopeful that the participants are getting the knowledge and they will, after successful completion of this FDP, they will realize that what is going on in this field, and they will do some concrete work, and definitely the students will be benefited from the experiences. So best of luck and good wishes from my side.
Thank you, Pawan sir. We hope you also join, we invite, and you will join again in the validity session for your final conclusion, your nice uh, suggestion and then direction. We will continue such type of activities, such type of FDP for our faculty members throughout the years.
Definitely, definitely. I will take I some time, then I will join. I joined here because I see that Dr. Okel was giving the lecture from this the room is attached to my cabin, so I just joined here. I will try to join. Thank God. Thank you.
Please, sir, please, please.
Thank you.
All participants are required to fill their attendance using Google link as well as the feedback form, which is the mandatory requirement for getting their e-certificates. All are requested to please fill the attendance and feedback form both. Thank you all for joining the session, and by this we are just completing our day 4 session of the faculty development program on data management.
ठीक है Dr. Bale,
Yes,
is
sir.
diary now? Yeah.
Yes, sir, please, you can leave, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
वो डेटा मैनेजमेंट को तो बाद हमें सेशन 12 डालना तो सेशन है, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता।